the naming and labeling of quote-unquote diseases is a harmful practice that to a large extent denies the innate mobility and ever-changing quality of the psyche as expressed in flesh. You are told that you have quote-unquote something. Out of the blue, quote-unquote it has attacked you, and your most intimate organs perhaps. You are usually told that your emotions or beliefs or system of values has nothing to do with the unfortunate circumstances that beset you. The patient, therefore, often feels relatively powerless and at the mercy of any stray virus that might come along. The facts are that you choose even the kind of illness that you have according to the nature of your beliefs. You are immune to ill health as long as you believe that you are. These are quite practical statements. Your body has an overall body consciousness filled with energy and vitality. It automatically rights any imbalances, but your conscious beliefs also affect this body consciousness. Your muscles believe what you tell them about themselves. So does every other portion of your physical body. While you believe that only doctors can cure you, you had better go to them, because in the framework of your beliefs, they are the only people who can help you. But the framework itself is limiting, and again, while you may be cured of one difficulty, you will only replace it with another as long as your beliefs cause you to have physical problems. Now, the same applies to what is frequently called spiritual healing. If through the concentrated use of psychic energy your body is cured by such a healer, you will also simply trade symptoms for others unless you change your initial beliefs. Now, sometimes a healer or a doctor, with his effectiveness in healing a condition, will show you by inference that the healing energy was always within yourself, and this realization may be strong enough to allow you to change your beliefs about health entirely. In such a case, you will realize that your previous ill health was caused by your belief. If you have any physical problems, concentrate instead upon the healthy portions of your body and the unimpeded functions that you have. In the healthy areas, your beliefs are working for you. As I mentioned, inner sounds are extremely important. Each of the atoms and molecules that compose your body has its own reality in sound values that you do not hear physically. Each organ of your body, then, has its own unique sound value too. When there is something wrong, the inner sounds are discordant. The unharmonious sounds have become a part of that portion of the body as a result of the inner sound of your own thought beliefs. That is why it is vital that you not reinforce these inner sounds through repeating the same negative suggestions to yourself. Verbal suggestions are translated into inner sound. This passes through your body in somewhat the same way that some kinds of lights do. Now, while you are physical creatures, then your perceptions must be largely physically oriented. Even your bodies exist in other terms than you usually suppose. You perceive them as objects with bulk, composed of bone and flesh. They also have quote-unquote structures of sound, light, and electromagnetic properties that you do not perceive. These are all connected with the physical image that you know. Any physical disabilities will show themselves in these other structures initially. The sound, light, and electromagnetic patterns give strength and vitality to the physical form that you recognize. They are more mobile than the physical body, and even more susceptible to the changing pattern of your thought and emotion. I told you that thoughts are translated into this inner sound, but thoughts always attempt to materialize themselves also. As such, they are incipient images, collectors of energy. They build up their own embryonic form until it is in one way or another physically translated. Mental images, therefore, are extremely powerful, combining inner sound and its effects with a clear mental picture which will seek physical form. Your imagination adds motivating and propelling power to such images, and so you will find that many of your beliefs are entertained by you in an inner visual manner. They will have mental pictures connected with them. One such image may represent one particular belief, or it may stand for several. As you make lists of your beliefs, you will find some of these pictures coming into your mind. Look at them as you would a painting you have created. If you do not like what you see, then quite consciously change the picture in your mind. These images are interior, yet because they are so a part of your beliefs, you will see them exteriorized also in your experience. Let me give you a simple example. You have a sore toe. Now and then you see it quite clearly in your mind. You may find yourself looking at the toe more frequently than usual, and you may also find yourself picking out from the populace anyone who is not walking properly. These people might escape your notice ordinarily, but suddenly the world seems to be full of sore toes. We are dealing to make a point with a belief already made physical. But if you continued such concentration, the toe either would not heal or would develop into a worse condition. Behind all this, of course, would be the belief that caused the difficulty, but once you have brought about a group of systems, you must be very careful that you do not begin to view your field of reality from that position. When you do, you add both inner and outer images that reinforce the condition. There is light then that you do not see with physical eyes, as there is sound that you do not hear with your ears. These combine to mentally form the physical image that you know, so you must work from the inside out. Your beliefs are your palette, using the analogy of a painting again. Your thoughts give the general outline of the reality that you physically experience. Your emotions will fill in the patterns with light. Your imagination will forge these together. The sound of your inner thoughts is the medium that you actually use. This is far more than an analogy, however, for in simple terms it explains quite clearly the way in which your beliefs form your reality. In quiet moments, the word Om, said slowly, mentally or aloud, will be of benefit in toning up your general physical condition. The sounds contain within them a built-in impetus toward energy and well-being, as I will explain shortly. The body reacts not so much to physical sound as to the interior sounds into which the physical sounds are translated. As mentioned, it also reacts to sounds that have no physical quote-unquote counterparts. There are certain properties within the structure of the chromosomes that must be activated by specific internal sound values. If this activation does not take place, then the quote-unquote attributes latent within the chromosomes remain so. There are chains of influence that are actually composed of inner values of sound that thread together, as it were, the complicated interweavings of both the genes and chromosomes. These sound values are literally interwoven in an electromagnetic pattern. The sounds weave themselves thoroughly and help form this pattern. The activity of cells within the body also causes what you might call minute explosions of interior sound. The electromagnetic and inner sound values are impinged upon by certain kinds of light. Together, these all form the prototype upon which and out of which the physical body is formed. Now, when you create a mental image in your mind, it is composed of the same properties just mentioned. A mental image, then, is also a pattern of internal sound with electromagnetic properties imbued with certain light values. In a sense, and a very real one, the mental image is incipient matter, and any structure so composed, combining the electromagnetic sound and light values, will automatically try to reproduce itself in physical existence or materialization. There is a definite connection, then, with the nature of such images and the way in which your body itself is composed. Electrons, atoms, and molecules all have their independent interior sound and light values. There are definite sounds produced when messages leap from your nerve ends. It is very difficult to explain some of this, but there is quote-unquote invisible light then, an inaudible sound, that affects your body and helps form the pattern about which it constantly emerges. Your body is obviously continually created during your present lifetime in your terms. It is not a mechanism once created, then left to fend for itself. You were not given a certain amount of quote-unquote life force at birth that you use up as you go along, contrary to many schools of thought. The atoms and molecules within you are quite literally dying and being completely replaced all the time. You are being created physically each instant. The body reacts to exterior sounds and to the stimuli brought to it by the physical senses. These patterns of reaction can be clearly shown. They are all that is presently observable, however, of far greater interactions that also occur. The atoms and molecules that compose your cells in your flesh, for instance, do not react to the physical sounds that you hear or to the light patterns that your physical eyes perceive. In times of danger, your entire body must be able to move swiftly. The hormonal system must react with great rapidity, sometimes completely changing the balance of a moment earlier. The muscles must be immediately alert, and the entire body flexible enough to respond as a whole. This includes every organ and the most minute portion. Say you are in the middle of a street, and suddenly a car is about to hit you. It has come seemingly from nowhere. The cells that compose your intestines, your heart, your muscles obviously do not see the car as quote-unquote you do, yet the whole system must be instantly activated, and the data that quote-unquote you perceive must be translated in terms that will energize every portion of your body. This is done by translating exterior stimuli into interior stimuli, but the physical carriers of the data are all that scientists or physicians have been able to follow thus far. The greater interactions have not been perceived, and the true story of the decoding of such messages has not been understood. Now, the nerves are also composed of the same kind of interior structures as mentioned earlier, around or rather from which the physical nerves form. Here, the exterior data is translated and broken down into inner terms. That is, it is decoded in terms of the internal sound, light, and electromagnetic patterns discussed before. It then becomes usable information, even in terms of the atoms and molecules that compose the cells. The physical lapse that occurs between an incoming message and its intended destination does not occur on these other levels. The quote-unquote interior message gets to its destination ahead of the physical one. By the time the organism responds, the inner patterns have already reacted, and this must and always does precede any physical response to stimuli. Therefore, the invisible body pattern, composed of its interior light, sound, and electromagnetic properties, reacts first and actually initiates the later physical response. There is always this translation of exterior stimuli. The perceived lapse noted by scientists is of course the physical one, caused by the quote-unquote time it takes the message to leap the nerve endings. The interior translation, however, is simultaneous. Now, return in your mind to the situation of the near accident. That event with the car, its driver, and your own precarious position exists as another structure besides the one that you physically see. It also, the event, exists in the terms mentioned earlier, in a reality composed of invisible light, inaudible sound, and electromagnetic patterns. Consciously, you react to the physical data, the noise, the squeal of brakes perhaps, the visual shock of seeing the car so close. But the entire inner reality of that scene or event is instantly quote-unquote recognized by what I refer to as your inner senses. These respond to the interior patterns I've told you about. The physical data is carried through the nerves with the necessary time lapses that must occur. These represent the temporal end of the spectrum of perception. Because you are flesh and blood creatures, the interior aspects of perception must have their physical counterparts. But material awareness and bodily response to it would be impossible were it not for these internal webworks.